Submitting a form with Ajax is very similar to submitting a form normally in MVC. Here we can have Ajax.BeginForm helper method to use, and this is similar to the HTML.Begin form. Now, where this comes into play is that you can also have events like your onSuccess, onFailure, onBegin that we covered earlier from Ajax options to call JavaScript functions for each of those. For instance, if you want an onSuccess saying the form was successfully submitted and received by the server, you could have the onSuccess event of the Ajax.Begin form call another function alerting you that form was successfully submitted to the server. Now, the onSuccess event just says that the data made it to the server and the server was happy about that. It doesn't mean that it actually validated it for you. In this demo, we're going to be looking at submitting a form to retrieve information, unlike previously where we just simply clicked a link and it did a GET request via Ajax to get information. So let's just go ahead and kick it off and start our application so you can see what we're going to be doing. So here we're going to be getting the dog details using a form. Here we have a form that has a drop-down list with our dogs populated here. So I'll go ahead and select Izzy and click the button Get Details. As you can see, it retrieved the information the same as before where we just simply clicked a link and also retrieved the information. So let's look into our controller and see what needs to be set up for this action result to populate this form correctly. So go ahead and close and stop our debugging. Go in and we will want to go to our dog controller. And we want to go down to our form action method. Alright, here we are. Our action result of getDogForm. Here, the first thing that we need to do is we need to pass our select list that fills up our drop-down box on the front with all of our dog names. So here we have a straightforward C# that is instantiating a new select list, and then we're saying for every dog that we have from our model's dog, create or add to our list the new select item where the text is equal to the name of the dog and the value is the dog ID, so that we can use that to query against our list and retrieve the dog's information. Then after the list is all created, we create a view bag with the name of dog names and then set that equal to a new select list. So then we'll pass that to our view, which we'll be looking into just next. So now let's go into the view for the dog view and let's look at some things there. So we're going to go into our getDogForm. Here we are using the Ajax.Begin form to instantiate our form and to Ajaxify it. We're pointing to the method of getDogDetails. We're passing Ajax options of update target ID like we've used before. So that means that whatever we get back, like a string in this case, we want to populate the element, the page element of div results, which is right here. And then within that, here we have our HTML.dropdown list, which we're calling the ID. That's the name of our element here. And then as values for the dropdowns, we're passing in our select list that is made up of our viewbag.dog names, which using viewbags for to populate select lists is very common in MVC development. And there are some cases where you can have 5 or 6 different viewbags passing dictionary data that essentially will become select lists for dropdowns. And this is true regardless if you're using an MVC dropdown list or if you're using something like Telerik Kendo UI, for instance, and their dropdown list. You still pass viewbag data down and instantiate it as a select list. And lastly here, if you want to pass in a default selection, if you will, like select a dog, or in this case choose a dog. You can do that here. So then we have a normal submit button, but because we're using Ajax form, this will automatically submit it via Ajax and not try to do a full server submit. So let's go ahead and run this, and then we'll look at the code. So here we are going to use our get dog details form. And let's go ahead and right click and view the page source. Pretty standard stuff. Here is our form that got built, and it has the action of going to the dog controller, get dog details. And here's our HTML5 attributes to help with the Ajax. Our data Ajax saying is true. Mode is replace. Our Ajax-update means that we're going to update div results, which is right here, based on whatever comes back. The ID form 0, that's standard. Method post, that's standard because we didn't specify it. And here's our select list with the element ID of ID, name ID, and here we have our options. Our default option out of the gate is choose a dog with no value. And then we have several other dogs that do have values. And then our input button, and then essentially the close of the form. So, as you can see, when I select a dog name, it has the ID in the back end. And then when I click details, using Ajax, it goes and hits the method of get dog details right here, and it returns this information to the screen here, which fills up the div result list. In this demo, we're going to continue looking at our dog app application with the form and see what happens when we have a null value trying to be submitted via Ajax. So right now we're just going to go ahead and fire up our application in Firefox, and we're going to do get dog details using a form. And without choosing a dog, I'm just going to let it stay choose a dog, which is just our selection that was put in on the fly when the controller loads up our select list. Go ahead and hit get details, and it looks like nothing happened, but actually something did happen behind the scenes. Again, if you remember, I have referenced Firebug before with other of the demos in this chapter. And let's open up Firebug and reload this so we can see what's going on behind the scenes. So once the page reloads, we will work with Firefox here. Okay, let me go ahead and stop it, and I'm going to reload the form manually there. Oh, I forgot I put a breakpoint there. So we can continue. That was my fault from earlier. Okay, so here we have the form. We have Firebug in full effect. I've got my console ready to go in case anything happens. So choose a dog, which does not have an ID. I'm going to try to hit get details on it and see what happens. Okay, network error, 500 server error, blah 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 blah. Well, if we go to net, we go XHR, it makes a little more sense to us a little bit here. Okay, during the post, going to get dog details, it gave us a 500 server error. So let's go ahead and open this up and see what kind of message it's giving us. Okay, response headers, yada yada yada. Nothing really good for us there. Let's look at the post. We see that nothing was sent in the post for the ID. So let's look at the response. Ooh, this is all sorts of nastiness here. Blah blah blah. Oh, this would have been a yellow screen of death error if it actually went to the page. So let's see. Parameters dictionary contains a null entry for parameter of ID. Well, we know that because it doesn't have an ID for where it's at. So here we're saying get dog details, an Ajax controller, optional parameter must reference a nullable type or declared as an optional parameter. And parameter name is ID. Okay, so this basically means that, hey, look, you don't pass an ID, I'm not going to do anything but throw an error. That's essentially what MVC is saying to us right now. So let's go ahead and close the application, and we'll go ahead and stop it, and let's open up our controller and see what's going on there. Okay, so let's go down to our getDog form, or excuse me, details. Okay, so this is our main action result of getDog details, which we're looking just for an ID. Well, we don't have anything that handles if it's not there, so we need a way to handle nullable IDs. Luckily, I already built this. So I'm going to go ahead and comment out our current method of getDog details, and I'm going to uncomment the other one that does handle nullables. So here we are handling a nullable integer of ID, so if it is null, we'll accept it as well. It's just as nice as everybody else. But what's different here is that we are actually checking to see if the nullable ID has a value. If it does have a value, we're going to allow this to go through and build up our string just like before. If it does not have a value, we're going to add to the string, say please select a value from the list and then try again. In either case, we're going to return the content of string back to the view. So now that we have this in place, let's go ahead and save it, and we'll rerun it again. And we'll go to the getDog details using form, and we'll just leave it set. I'm going to go ahead and fire up in Firebug just in case. Turn on my console, I'm looking for errors. So choose a dog, get details. Well, it didn't fail. As you see, no errors were passed via Firebug, and it worked as expected and returned the string of please select a value from the list and then try again. So that's how you handle nullable values, just one of many examples with Ajax, and basically respond back to the screen when something goes wrong. Besides our normal action view results that we have in our controllers, there are a few Ajax-related action results that are worth mentioning. The first one is JSON result. Here you return JSON as the result in a method in a controller, so that if you are calling this via a JavaScript or an Ajax from jQuery, you'll actually get JSON data back. Also, there's JavaScript result, which is fairly obvious. You'll get a JavaScript back instead of a JSON result. Here you can write action methods that will provide the custom content to a page. As mentioned, you can use JavaScript or Ajax calls to actually get this data. When you're working with JSON data, the JSON result is a specialized version of the content result. JSON actually stands for JavaScript Object Notation. This is a lightweight textual data format. And this is obviously more compact than XML, as it doesn't have a lot of the open and close tags that XML does have. Here's a sample of some JSON data. Here you notice all the members are surrounded with double quotes, and they are separated from the member in the value by a single colon. And the members are then separated by a comma. Now, you can have an array of this. What you see would represent one record row, like in a table. And note, this is not formatted for direct display for your end user. This is meant to be consumed between different applications in terms of just sharing data back and forth for a data interchange. In this demo, we're going to be looking at working with JSON data within MVC and see how that works. So let's go ahead and fire open Firefox and run our project. There's a link that we're going to use, get list of dogs using JSON. And simply we're just going to click on the dog list and return a JSON result. Here we have our JSON result there. Obviously it comes out as an unordered list and so forth. So now that we know what the result looks like, let's look at our controller and see how this is called. Let's go ahead and stop. And actually we'll start with our view first, even though it's a controller. Go to our dog list. So here we have actually JavaScript that we wired up a button, our button for get dogs, which is actually down here. There's our button there. So we have a wire up event from jQuery for get dogs, and we're doing a get JSON call, and we're calling our dog controller, and then the method of get dog list JSON, and passing in a couple other things. And then on our success, we're passing the data back to a function called show dogs. So and here's our function for show dogs. We're instantiating a little list, which pretty much just a string there. And then we're saying for every item that we get back, we want to add to that list or append that string with the list objects with the data for the name and the age coming back. And then when it's all said and done, we're going to wire up all that data in our div results element, which is right here. Actually, we're replacing all of that with that JavaScript function. Okay, so now that we've seen the view, let's look at the controller and see how we're getting our data back. Our controller, go scroll all the way down to our get dog list JSON. Now here we have a normal action result, which instead of returning a view like we've done in most cases previously, here we're returning a JSON object. And within JSON, we're just returning our dogs model, which is defined up above within our main class. One of the good things to point out is that when JSON is passed back from MVC, this is just plain text. So it doesn't matter if you're passing a password, the time of day, or in this case, a bunch of dog names and their ages. It's all done in plain text, so that means anybody could request this. So, as part of a security measure, we have this JSON.request behavior with allow get on here. And this means that this tells this controller method that the HTTP GET requests from the client are allowed. So what that means is that if you don't do this, you will actually get an error. To prove that point, I'm going to go ahead and comment this out and uncomment this, which essentially this is valid syntax and it's doing the exact same thing, although we are not specifying that the behavior for allow get is valid here. So this means that we're not saying one way or another if this is valid or not. Even though our intention may be that it is valid, if we do not allow the JSON request behavior with allow get to be added to this little call, this return, this will not work. So let's go ahead and save this, and we'll run this again. And what we're going to do here is this time around, we're going to open up Firebug so we can watch for errors. And we're going to click on our get dog list again. And you notice nothing came back. We did get a network error. So let's go to our net category, XHR. Moving over, it's got the correct URL, so that's not the problem. Let's expand this and see what's going on. Response headers, not much there. Things are pretty normal. Oh, here it is. The actual response saying, this request has been blocked because sensitive information could be disclosed to third-party websites when this is used in a GET request. To allow GET requests, set the JSON request behavior to allow GET, much like we had in our controller right here. So essentially, if you're returning JSON and you do not set this, this is what you can expect. You can expect an error to come back to your page if you're using something like Firebug or another party tool like Fiddler and so forth. Any which way you slice it, you just definitely need to be very cognizant about your security within your site, and especially when you're dealing with client request technologies like JSON and so forth.